Have you ever experienced the paralyzing fear of just not being able to measure up to the calling?
Two things I have to sort of step back and have that self-talk. The self-talk that I have, because words matter, is I have to start having more of a conversation of gratitude versus gap in my life. And the second thing is, this is key, is who can I go serve now? Like, I got to have more gratitude, and who can I go serve now? Because if I start feeling like I am not measuring up, it's because I'm totally looking at myself. I'm totally looking at myself. And it's a small nuance.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up, because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go.
Hey listeners, Unreasonable Autonomy is so thrilled to welcome the incredible Chaz Wilson to the conversation today. Chaz Wilson is the CEO and founder of Wilson Leadership and Master Networks. He's also a best-selling author and a business mentor with 20 plus years of experience. He helps entrepreneurs overcome obstacles and succeed across various industries with a focus on leaving a lasting legacy beyond business success. And on a personal note, I consider Chaz Wilson a dear friend. This conversation is a long time in coming. I have no doubt it will leave a lasting impact on your day and, in fact, your life. Let's start the conversation now. My dear listeners, welcome back to the podcast. I am just gushing with our incredible guest today. This is a dear friend of mine, the amazing Chaz Wilson. Chaz, first, let's just let you say hi. I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
We've got to dive like straight in, because you guys have heard of Chaz Wilson. You have probably seen him speak from one of 1,000 stages, right? You have probably dove into some sort of book or training, or you know him as the networking guy or whatever it may be. But I got to tell you that I was introduced to the world of Chaz Wilson when I actually found him online and found him a little bit on YouTube. And what I loved about you, Chaz, is I was like, he's a business owner. He's crushing it. He understands business. He understands how to repeatedly build businesses, but he also is like a human. He has this wife and he has these kids, and he's like serving in his church, and he's like doing all this kind of stuff. And I have to say, I've been around gurus for forever, and I think you know that. And I think I immediately kind of threw you into the guru realm, which you're very gifted and very smart and very hardworking. But there was something about your human quality where I was like, I want to be in this guy's world more, right? This guy has got a more complete life. And so that is what I feel like is one of the biggest gifts that you have given to the industry, is somehow you are this guru. I hope that doesn't offend you. And so gifted and so talented, but that you have done that in a very whole way, with a marriage and with God and with your kids. And so I am just so honored to be able to dive into maybe how you've done that in a way, and share that with our audience. So welcome to the podcast today.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, thank you for that introduction, and the feeling's mutual. So I'm just honored to be here, and I'll probably share more of the mistakes than the successes, because that's how how I've learned. But I just appreciate the introduction, and yeah, it's been learning and struggling, and we've had our struggles, and we'll probably share some of that too. But everyone looks from the outside of where you are today and says, "Oh, that's amazing," but what they don't understand is how you got there, and the work that it takes to get there. And yeah, so just honored to be here, and looking forward to sharing.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's get everybody on the same page before we start diving really deep into your stories and failures and successes. And I love that we can stack all the failures up and be like, oh, that's how I got there. This is so cool. This is so cool. So orient everybody, get everybody on the same page. You are really known as a master networker, no pun intended, if you guys look at his bio, right? And you also really do have this kind of legacy driven idea that business is a huge part of your legacy as a human. So what sort of pointed you on that trajectory? What was going wrong maybe in life that opened up this idea of like, I've got to start being legacy driven. And I believe that networking and building a business is the way in which I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you. So it's interesting. Excuse me. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur, like from the start. I remember I had this entrepreneurial mindset even in high school. And I had a friend of mine who her father owned a college hat company, like basically like college caps and stuff. And so I spent a few times at his warehouse helping him unbox and stuff. And I remember like unboxing these hats and looking at it and going, these are cool. I've never seen these in the store. And he's like, well, they haven't hit the stores yet. That's why we're inventorying and put all this stuff over. And I said, well, can I have one? He's like, sure, you can have one. And then I'd wear it. And my friends were like, where'd you get that? I want that, and so I go back to him. And I remember him saying, like, this is the first time I learned about wholesale and margins and all this stuff. And he's like, well, you could buy the hats from me for this amount and then you can go sell them to your friends. And I was like, okay, great. So I would go to school and everyone had pictures of their boyfriends and girlfriends in their lockers. And I had hats like stacked in my locker. People would come in between class and I'm like, dealing hats, and it was great. Till the school was like, either you give us a cut or, it was like, get out. So then I moved it to my trunk of my car, and after school, I'm like, meet me outside after school. And I was I was selling hats and I was making money, and I was like, this is great. And all my other friends are, working at the gas station or the fast food place. And I'm making more in 15 minutes after school than and they're trading, 6 hours a night. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's something to this entrepreneurial idea. So I've sort of already had this, right? But where it really shifted into something meaningful and fulfilling and impactful really came on the heels of a failure. And
it always happened that way.
Right? I mean, so in context, my wife and I we've been married now 25 years, this is really smart things. For two smart things. One is I asked her to marry me and she said yes. Somebody asked me that once from stage, like, what'd she say? I'm like, wait, let me back out how I said that. It's my wife of 25 years. She said yes. So yes, sometimes, and then the second part was we got married in the year 2000. So I always can know how many years we were married. It's just easy. What year are we in?
You're really smart.
Years? Yeah, super smart, right?
So leverage.
I'm a simple guy. I need simple. So married 25 years. We have 5 children, and we had boy, girl, boy. And then my wife said, I think we're going to have one more. And I'm not going to argue with her. I'm like, okay, if you're feeling that. And so we had twin boys. And so she found out she's pregnant on Valentine's Day, and the boys were born October 4th. Well, her parents found out they were pregnant with her on Valentine's Day, and she was born on October 4th. So they all share the same birthday. Is that crazy?
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So these little boys were born. They're about this time. I owned this real estate company, multiple offices. I'm at the top of the world. And one day a bunch of my partners walk in and they said, hey, we want to know where all the money went. Well, I'm like, what are you talking about? And I had no idea what they were talking about. And because I was just out selling and doing things and running, and I wasn't watching what was going on to the level I probably should have been as I look back now. Mm. And so my other business partner, I'm like, where is she? And so we drove to her house. Anyway, long story short, she was gone. She left, took a bunch of money. So I have 5 little kids. I'm at this place, and I ended up walking away from that real estate opportunity and started what is now Master Networks. And you imagine that conversation going to my wife and saying, hey, I know this thing didn't work out the way we visioned it, but I want to start another business. And so
while you hold these little twin boys in your arms. Oh
no, for real. But I want to just share a really key point, because you talked about the marriage, the family, the thing. One thing that's really important for my wife and I is we work off of agreement as much as possible, not expectation. Mm. And so we sat down and said, here's the agreement. She's like, absolutely, I will support you, but you have 6 months. Like, here's the agreement. Like, can you make this work in 6 months? Because I don't know, coming off the heels of what we come on, we've got these 5 little kids, all under the age of 7. Can you make this work in 6 months? And I was like, I'll give it my best shot.
Yeah.
Now,
and realistically, for anyone listening, 6 months is a really short runway,
short.
right? Like, bless your wife. I love her faith in you.
Yeah.
That she's like, I can do this for 6 months. Can you? Right? Ooh, right. That is a short runway.
Well, and we got to the 6 months and we weren't there, right? But she had seen the progress. I think that's actually, in looking back, what she was asking for is the progress. Uh-huh. Can I see the progress? And sometimes, when I go speak on stages, people always say, Chaz, how do I get my spouse on board? How do I get my spouse on board? Because I have this spouse that's not entrepreneur minded, and how do I get them on board? And I always say the same thing. I'm like, the first step is be honest. Be honest about your progress.
So can I just interrupt you?
Yeah, please.
Right in the middle of your story.
You can interrupt me anytime, by the way.
Yeah. What is it that gets in the way of us being honest with the person we have promised to be honest to? Why aren't we honest?
It's so fascinating because people will always, because we're visionaries, most entrepreneurs, right? We create the biggest dream possible, and that's the vision we share because we want their buy-in. So just like anyone else, we're sharing, here's what's possible. Here's the buy-in. Here's the thing that we're going to go do. And then we don't get there. And we already knew that as probably visionaries, like, because we always set it really high.
Right.
And then so, our spouse checks in and says, what's the progress? Like, well, this is how far I am. Like, but I thought we were going to go here. And I have, and my wife is amazing. And she, over time, but especially at the beginning, it was like a lot more analytical than I am, which is, those opposites attract kind of thing, right? So she's a lot more analytical and she's a little bit more defined on the specifics than I am. I'm like, yeah, we can do this. So we could do this. And so when I didn't do that, she's like, but wait, this is what you said. I was like, this is a really moment of clarity for me. I'm like, I have to be really clear in what I'm saying and what I'm committing to and what I'm promising to. And I've got to be really brutally honest about the ups and the downs, because business is up and down. Mm-hmm. And so those 6 months, she really just said, this is where I want to see the progress. And so I would report in, hey, didn't quite hit it, but this is the progress we made. We're not there yet, but this is what's happening. And so I think that's the key, Sarah, is the honesty to that process. And you just got to have that honesty.
Well, and that is so huge. And I now am recognizing that ripple effect in your teams and with your kids that you've raised, of that ability to just be honest and to be clear and to face failure head on, as well as celebrate success head on, right? To just shine a light on all of it. So what would you say to listeners that are in that space of like, okay, my spouse is not on board, but they feel like, they've got a solid relationship there. It's not that there's, aggression going on there, and they want to be honest. How do you help paint a picture for a spouse that's with you on the ride of, this is going to go like this? This is like setting that kind of expectation. Again,
I think laying that out, that is the path it's going to be, getting some agreements, those boundaries, those agreements for us were like, here's what needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then we're going to have to do something else. But like, here's the agreements along the way. And I learned over time that because I wanted her, this was a really big revelation. And I will just, in full transparency, it came through one of our hardest times of our marriage. We have these 5 little kids. I lost the business. I'm starting this new one. And so I don't want to paint that it was like, hey, you got 6 months to go do this. There was a lot of like tough conversations in this. We had lost everything. I mean, cars looking at being repossessed. Our house is about to be repossessed. She works part-time as a nurse. We have 5 little kids. I'm watching the kids in the morning. She's coming home and sleeping. I'm working. Like, it was just crazy chaos. But in that time, there was a lot of clarity around, I kept wanting her to, I'm trying to think of the right word, but like, see it the way I saw it.
Sure.
And I had to realize she doesn't see it the way I see it. Nothing wrong with that. And she's taking care of what she needs to take care of. And what she really wants from me is, go take care of it. You don't need to share the whole thing with me. Just go take care of it. And I see too many entrepreneurs are like, I need my spouse to be here and see it over my shoulder. No, just go handle your business. And that's because,
handle your business.
Right? That's what she was really saying to me, is just go handle your business and I'll go handle mine over here. And because honestly, in that kind of chaos and sometimes in stages of life, the best thing we can do to support our partner is just go handle our business. Go take care of what we have to take care of. That was the best way I could support her at that time.
You guys, this is like a 1,000 level class in marriage from the amazing Chaz Wilson. This is so good. This is so good. And I'll bring in my own personal spin on this. Greg and I, my husband, Greg, we always joke that the 3 sexiest words on earth are, I've got this, right? And I think that's our version of saying, I'm taking care of my business, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're taking care of your business there. And I also love the nuance here that you bring in, that you didn't need her to see every single step, right? You didn't need to see, who did I interview this week, or who did I network with, or she didn't need to see the list and accountability necessarily, but she needed that feeling of Chaz is taking care of business. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And even further, sometimes in business, you'll want to make a decision or I'll be, on a sales call with somebody and like, well, I really need to talk to my spouse. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Is your spouse in the business? Well, no, but we just have this rule that we, anything over $1,000 or something we talk about. I'm like, great. I'm glad you have agreements. And in some of these people I know really well. And the problem is what their spouse is really saying is, will you just go handle business? In fact, it's not even fair to ask them. Like I had to learn really hard one time with my wife about something I wanted to do. And it's so funny. I got a call to be in Russell Brunson's inner circle a couple of years ago. And, it was a big investment. It was more than our first home. Okay. So now I'm going a little bit fast forward, right? Like a couple years back. And I remember my wife said to me, I said, hey, I want to make this decision. I really just want your support in it, because it's a lot of money. And she said, okay, I just have one question. I was like, okay. What is it? She said, if you don't do this, will you regret it? I was like, oh man. My wife's a genius. She never gives herself enough business credit either. But she said, will you regret it? And I said, probably. Truthfully, probably. And she said, well, good, do it, because you're miserable to live with when you live in regret. So just do it. Like just go do it. Right. But what, like in a loving, tongue-in-cheek way, it was like, what we really just need is our support. Like when I feel like my wife supports me, I heard someone say it one time, when I have my wife's, how do you say it? When my wife's arms are wrapped around me, it's like the cape of support that I can conquer the world. And like, that's the truth. It's like when our spouse supports us, they don't have to know everything. When they support us, it's like we can conquer the world.
Oh, I believe that. And I think we're both living proof of that. Right. Mm-hmm. With the partners that we chose and what that's created in our lives. I'm so curious about this gap in between losing the real estate business and then starting a new one, which was Master Networks. Is that the business Correct. That you built at that time? Yep. Okay. So I'm curious, when you talk about your wife noticing that you are not fun to live with when you're living in regret, what is a period of your life in which you were living in regret where she was able to witness that?
So it was actually during that time. So the fascinating part is, and I know many entrepreneurs feel this, like this is the actual struggle every day, which at some point I hope we'll get to. And I strategically put behind me the new book that I wrote. And the reason why is because there's this push of this like gap of where entrepreneurs feel like their capacity, their capabilities, their abilities, all their talents should take them, and they're not there yet. And so I was living in that regret of like, I don't feel like I'm living the full mission that I feel called to live. And I don't feel like I'm doing that. And so I think she was feeling that angst and anxiety I was feeling. And so I'll share with you one of the things that got me, at least propelled me into that path really quickly.
Please.
And it's so interesting. It's the who, it's not the what. And so I found someone who had walked the path, who'd been where I wanted to be, who had helped launch big national brands. And he had retired. He's twice my age. His name was Dave. And I invited Dave out to my office. He agreed, which I was shocked. Like he didn't know me. I hit him up via email, and I use an acronym called BOND to connect with people. And he got on a phone call and said, hey, let me fly out to Minnesota where you're at, and I'll spend a couple of days with you, and here's what it's going to cost, and I'll mentor you, and we'll get it going. And so excited. And It was like the next week, like it was quick. He came out, we spent some time. And then in the middle of that moment of like him seeing what was possible for me, right? And I'm like, oh, finally, I see the path. Like, I don't have to live in this regret anymore of like, I don't know what to do. Like somebody sees it. He believes in me. He lays it out. And, I've shared many times with people is that I'm sitting on that couch and my phone is like buzzing. And I like look down, it's my wife. And she knows I'm with Dave that day. So like, I feel like I gotta take this phone call. And so I just excuse myself. There's no room. Like this little office is like 12 by 12. So I'm like, Dave, can I take a phone call outside? And, hey, no problem. He's like, I'll use the restroom. We'll kind of refresh. We'll come back and we'll hit it again. And I was like, great. So I go outside and I was like, hon, what's going on? She's like, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're with Dave. And I've got to paint the picture. She's got 3 little kids with her at the grocery store. The other 2 are in preschool and like first grade or something like that. And she's got, 3 little kids, 2 in carriers. So she's got 1 cart with kids and 1 with groceries. Like that's how we shopped, so, yeah. And she's like, the card's not working. And I'm like, chats. So I'm like, well, hold on. And so I remember it's so fascinating because this moment is like, it was like I was living it and I had this voice over my shoulder, like, don't ever forget this. While I'm literally in the middle of it. Don't ever forget this. Don't ever forget this. And I don't know where I know where that came from, but like, I don't know why. Like, it was like, why am I hearing this voice? Like, this is pivotal right now. And so I look at my bank account and it's like the visuals burned in my head and I had $27 in my bank. And if you haven't bought diapers recently, like I needed 3 boxes of diapers, nighttime pull-ups. I needed all the things. And like, I got $27. And I called her back and I said, I'm so sorry. We have $27 and get what you can for today and I'll figure out tomorrow. And again, key note for people, and somehow this has turned into like business and spouse thing, but like keynote, Sarah, I didn't recognize the value of this in the moment, but my spouse, my wife was like, she could have chewed me out on that phone call. She had every right to. I got home that night. She could have just laid into me. Why do we have $27? Like, what's going on? You said this was going to work. I mean, all the things. Never happened. And anyway, I went back in and I met with Dave. And I've shared this story with you. I know I walked in there and I'm like, crap, I got to buy him dinner tonight. This guy flew into town. I'm going to take him to dinner.
Spend the 27. Shoot.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so, but what I realized in that moment, I know, sorry, prolonging the story here, but with Dave, he saw in me what I was sort of losing in myself because of just obstacles and challenges. And so I remember sitting down, he's like, I'll never forget. I sat down, I just had this phone call and I sit down, he's like, all right, partner, you ready to go change the world? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Guess what are my options right now?
Did you tell him? Did you tell him what had happened? No. In fact, I excused myself later again. I called my parents and I said, hey, I need some money. It was a super humbling phone call. I need some money. I got to take Dave to dinner. And so think about this. I got to take Dave to dinner. I have no money to buy diapers. And this man has laid out a plan in front of me of how he can take me to the next level. And he says, to acquire my services will be $1,000 a month, which in retrospect isn't that much. But at the moment, you might as well said $100,000. It made no difference. Because it was impossible, right?
So the who's were Dave and my parents and my wife, because my parents loaned me money, said, we believe in you. Dave believed in me and my wife believed in me. I was like, all right, let's go. Let's take on the world. And surrounding me with those who's, we did some amazing stuff.
I'm fascinated by this story, right? I'm fascinated by this idea of how key those players were in your life and in bolstering you. And I think that's so important for people to recognize that entrepreneurship, it is never built alone, right? It's never built alone. And never is it built overnight, and never is it built without, $27 moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that card isn't going through. Mike, I have another question for you. When I see you and when I work with you, I see you as a pretty level-headed, honest, I believe in people. I believe in you. That's the kind of vibe that you give out. And I can see that you are reciprocating the belief that you have felt from other people along your journey. I am also fascinated with the idea that married with little teeny kids and with, $27 in the bank, that you weren't tempted to go secure or safe, that you weren't tempted to go and just work for someone else or find a corporate gig or find something that, the world would say would be a very reasonable decision. Chaz, just go give 5 to 7 years of your life in the corporate realm. You'll be great. You'll have a boss. It'll be secure. You'll have a 401k, all of those feelings. Was that ever a temptation for you? Did you ever go down that road? Why or why not?
Yes, actually. Not only did I get that, was I getting that advice, but so during that during the time I left the real estate company and started Master Networks, there was about 6 months where I did go take a sales job. And it required me to travel 90 miles away, stay overnight. And that just lasted next to nothing. And you want to talk about regret? That's the regret my wife saw me living in. Because, and now this, I want to be careful how I say this, because especially people who don't know me are going to listen to this statement, but I very quickly realized I felt above what we were doing. It was not fulfilling. I mastered it in weeks. They gave me a book of business to go sell. And they said, this will take you about 3 months. I did it in like 2.5 weeks. And then I was like, what do I do the rest of the time? And they're like, there's no way you sold it that fast. I'm like, yeah, well, partially because I'm the only one here who has kids and I want to get home to my kids and this kind of thing. And it was a younger person's game, I would say, and I wasn't that old, but they were all younger than me. I was the old guy in the group. And I just sold and I was fast and I was living in such regret. I was like, this is not what I'm called to do. So to answer it, yes, I did. And I realized really quickly, this is not for me. And so I would rather live in the pain of the entrepreneurship grind than the regret of not living my calling.
Every listener is like doing the hallelujah hands, right? The amen hands in the room because we do choose pain, right? By going on this journey. We do. So let me just pivot a little bit based upon this incredible story and your focus on helping entrepreneurs who feel called build a legacy-based life and business. One of the ways that you do that is by this word impact, right? You've got a new book coming out, The Impact Effect, which is actually directly related to that mentor, the $27 Moment mentor. Yeah. Give us a frame for why this is really the focus and what you're shining a light on right now is this thing called impact.
Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons, but one of them being that, I've shared this story with a number of people from stage where I have people stand up and I say, everyone in the room stand up if you know who your parents are. Like I remember the first time I did this was about 4,000 people. I mean, it was a big group. It was one of the biggest groups I've ever spoken in front of. And I had this whole, you could just the sound when everyone stood up, right? It was like just the noise.
All the chairs.
All the chairs, everyone stood up. And so like 4,000 people and pretty much, maybe there was a couple of people who were like, I'm adopted. I don't really know who my parents are, biological parents. And I said, okay, now sit down or remain standing. I'm sorry. If you know your parents, their names, their stories, blah, 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 stay standing. And nobody really sat down. Then I said, now, both sets of grandparents, you know them, you know their names, you know where they were born. You just know the basic information about them. And about half the room sat down. Their grandparents. It's like, okay. And I said, now, I said, now the next level is remain standing if you know your great grandparents. So all 8, you know who they are, where they were born, etc.
Ooh, I'd have to sit down.
I have done this so many times, and you have about the most I've ever seen is like 3% of the room, 4% of the room that's remaining standing. And so I just usually leave with this phrase and I say, I don't really have to say much. That's pretty visual, right? And I say, never in time in history has it been easier to learn who these people are.
Right.
Right. Okay. So the question I leave you as an entrepreneur is, will you live your life in such a way that in 3 generations from now, anyone knows you existed? Like
painful.
Like I'm the direct benefactor of people who went before me, who made amazing decisions, fought hard, did things that I now am the recipient of those blessings, those opportunities, those things because of them. And so I feel a sense of obligation maybe or duty to continue that. And I think as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, there's hardly any other platform that gives you such an opportunity to make that kind of impact in people's lives. And so that's why I think people are like, well, I'm just a realtor. I'm just an insurance agent. Well, when I need insurance, I don't call just an insurance agent. I call you when I need those things. So drop just and go, no, I need to make an impact in the world. And my platform to do that is the stewardship I've been given called my business.
Incredible. And immediately what comes to my mind is what makes the difference between a typical entrepreneur that is running a $1 million business versus the impact entrepreneur that is running a $1 million business. Is it a revenue level? Is it a structure? Like, how do you know if you're actually on track to being able to create impact 3 generations deep? How do you know?
Well, the smart marketer in me would say, well, order my book and it'll tell you all in there.
There's a link below, everybody. Go, go, go.
Well, let me answer it with this. I'll explain it in a quick story, but this will visualize it. Very, very important, right? And so my mentor, Dave, who was sitting on that couch in that $27 moment, who says, hey, this is what we're going to do, man. And I'm in with you. And so he believed in me and he saw something in me. So we started, right? A couple years later, he had been remarried and he was on his honeymoon in Hawaii. And he got back and he called me. He said, Chaz, I have an idea. I want to write a book and I want to write it with you. It's like, hey, when your mentor calls you and says, I want to write a book, you say, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so that idea was just laid on the table. But pretty quickly, I realized this man had been super impactful in my life. Okay. And so we decided to award him an award through our company, Master Networks, at our annual convention. He did not know this was coming. And so we decided we were going to give him this award. So hold that part right there. Okay. This company starts taking off. We move to Texas and I go on a trip to speak at one of these events I speak a lot at. And I come home and greet my wife. And she said, I have to tell you what happened while you were gone. I said, well, what happened? And she said, one of our twins came up. He's 7 years old at the time. And he walked up to me and he said, Mom, when I grow up, I want to change my name. And she goes, well, honey, your name's Tate. Why do you want to change your name? He goes, well, you changed your name to Mom. You know, he's the idea of a 7-year-old, right? Like her name's Jacqueline. She changed it to Mom. Like, so he says, I'm going to change my name to Mom. Or no. So she said, well, honey, what do you want to, sweetie, what do you want to change your name to? He says, when I grow up, my name's going to be Dave. Now, why Dave?
7 years old?
Yeah. Why Dave?
Why Dave?
Because Dave's been to our home. Dave had been to my kids' football games. He hears Dad talk about Dave and Dave's important to Dad and all this stuff, right? And so he sees Dave as an important thing, an impactful person in his dad's life. And so when he grows up, he wants his name to be Dave. So my wife posts that conversation on Facebook just as a cute story. Dave sees it and he comments and he says, when I grow up, I want my name to be Tate because that's my son's name. So now we give Dave this Person of Impact, Person of Influence Award, which has now been called the Dave Jenks Person of Influence Award. Guess who presented him the award?
Please tell me Tate.
Yes. Tate came out in his little suit and he handed Dave the award. Okay. Dave changed my life. And there's multiple people who have done that, but Dave changed multiple lives. And so we started writing this book together. And so what I realize is it's not about what you do, it's more about who you are. And the problem for most entrepreneurs is they think they're chasing a level of success that's going to make the impact, and you'll never exceed the level of your own personal development. And so you'll always self-sabotage and you'll always drop back to that level of who you are versus what you do. And that was the emphasis of the book that Dave and I started. Actually, 7 years ago, we started writing this book, and it's just now ready for release.
I am so moved by that story about Tate and recognizing how impact ripples, right? And I love the title, The Impact Effect, right? That's quite literally what it does through a father, through a mother, right? And how he was able to witness that. I would be fascinated to be a fly on the wall on what it was like to actually work with Dave. I think often we think about a mentor and we think about what strategy did they teach me, or what, polishing of my current business structure did they give me that made all the difference. What was it about working with Dave that really cracked you open into who you are now?
Oh, boy, if anyone could be a fly on the wall, like it was tough sometimes. Tough.
Okay, talk to me about tough. Like, get into the nitty gritty. What was tough about working?
Let me
with
tell you,
him?
and I mentor a few people right now, and I don't publicly talk about this. Like, I'm mentoring some really big producers right now, big time producers, and I'm very similar. I almost hear Dave's voice coming through my mouth when I say things to these people, because when I say tough, there was times where we got off a phone call, and I remember saying to my wife one time, I'm like, I don't think we're ever talking again. Dave and I are never talking again. Like
no.
That kind of tough. Okay. I'll give you a perfect example. This is what Dave taught me. See, what most people don't know is I was incredibly shy. I'm still pretty shy. I'm still pretty introverted. And so to get on stage and speak, one of the things he told me in that couch way back then, I write about this in the book, he said, Chaz, you've got to be a world-class speaker. if you want to create this mission, this is going to be something you have to do. And I fought that. And he said, Chaz, someone's going to do it. Why not you? And so here's how he mentored me. Many of the events I spoke at, he was there. He was sitting in the audience, or he watched the replay. And this is what he would do. He would come up to me after the event. He'd walk up to me in the hallway. This is such a beautiful masterclass on mentoring. And he would say, Chaz, how did you do? And I'd say, well, I think I did really well here and here and here and here. And I think I need to improve here, here, and here. And then he'd just smile. And this is what he waited for. He waited for me to ask. Because what he realized is if I didn't ask for where I could improve, I wasn't ready to hear it anyway. And so I'd say, Dave, was there anything you saw that I needed to improve? And he'd say, well, thank you for asking. Yeah, there's a few things I think. Are you ready? I'd say, yeah, hit me with it. He said, all right, this you did really well. This you did really well. When you did this on stage, why did you do that? And I'd say, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, when you walked over to that corner, why'd you do that? I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, there's no light over there. I'm in the back of the room. I can't see you. Now you're in the complete darkness. Little things like that, right?
Wow.
This is how it evolves. This is what a mentor does. So then fast forward 2 years later and I get off a stage one time and he walks up and he says, I knew it was coming. Like as soon as he comes up.
How'd you do?
How'd you do? I said, well, I did this well, this well, this well. And here's where I can improve. Dave, what do you think? And he said, I think you nailed it. But here's the thing. What I realized was he wasn't saying you got everything right. What was he teaching me? He was teaching me to be self-aware. So the whole reason he ever brought up anything else was if I wasn't aware I was doing it. But when I said, this is where I need to improve, this is where I need to improve, and there was no different list than his, basically, he's saying you're now self-aware enough. And that's how you start to rise up. That's how you start to become better, is because you're now self-aware. So that was just one example of how he mentored me without like just critical nature. It's like, I'm going to teach you. You think I'm just pointing out the things, but now I'm going to teach you a higher lesson, which is how to be more self-aware.
And I think about the temptation that any of us would have had as the mentor to just spew our words, right? But his ability to bite his tongue, to not speak unless he knew it was going to be received. What a powerful, like you said, masterclass in mentorship.
Yeah.
Powerful.
He's a legend. I mean, the number of people he similarly had relationships with, and the power was that everyone felt like their relationship was the only relationship with him, like that I'm his guy, you're his girl, like that's just it. Right. Like, but he just had that gift to be able to do that. And so that's how impact ripples, is through individuals, not through the masses. It takes hold long-term through the masses, but it starts with the individuals. Think about the greatest mentor movement of all time started with one, invited 12, and the marketing message was 3 words.
Come follow me.
Come follow me.
Wow.
So it doesn't have, but the masses have all been impacted.
Okay. I want to dig into this with you.
Okay, sure.
I love this idea that impact does not happen in the masses, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a temptation of how can I just serve the many, because that's revenue-wise smarter, that's faster for me, that's efficient for me. You speak from stages, all of those things. And we talk about the impact effect as being very, very one by one and individual. Tell me a little bit about, can someone reach the level of impact that they have been called to do without the support of those nearest and dearest to them? Wife, children, can they?
Yeah, I think they can. It's certainly, I don't want to say easier. I think maybe it's easier. I don't know. And it's hard for me to say because I have that. So I get it. It's easy for somebody to look at what I'm saying and say, well, you have that. But I've cultivated it. I've worked it. I've had those hard conversations. I've had that honesty, created those agreements. Can someone do it? I think yes. But I think it's going to be much more challenging. And so I think the better path of, pick your hard, is try to dig in and get those relationships to support you. Now, some may never, but I think it would certainly be easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that idea that you can get there, but let's talk about what the hard is going to be as part of that experience. And furthermore, where you talk about, the greatest impact that ever happened on earth was through the Savior, right?
Yeah,
I know you faithful man and family, and you practice your faith and your religion regularly. What is your opinion on, how do I say this, on our obligation to impact the world, and that those callings come from a divine source?
What's my opinion on that?
Yeah.
My opinion is that I think we've all been given gifts and talents. And I think just like the parable of talents, if we go hide them, then that's not good. We'll keep it. It's not good. And I think the fear we have is that many of us aren't afraid of the failure. We're actually afraid of what would happen if I really magnified and I really stepped into that thing.
Yeah, amen.
And what does that mean for me? I got to become a new person. I got to become a new identity. Well, if those gifts come from God and those gifts and talents come from God, well, who do you think is going to support you along the way if you're stepping into those gifts and talents? I think when we step into that, then it's sort of that well done, thou good and faithful servant. Here's more, and here's more. And here's more. You've been trusted with this stewardship. Now you've been trusted with this stewardship. Now you've been trusted with this stewardship. And so that's what I think when we improve ourselves, and that's when the impact can be then to a bigger group, and then a bigger group, and a bigger group. But if we can't, this is why I always say the greatest impact we'll have is in the four walls of our home.
Yeah. Amen.
And so my children have spoken on our stages, and people will come up and they'll say, no, this sounds like a total pat on the back. And I don't mean it this way. It's because my wife and I have been very intentional about how we've raised our children and our boys and my daughter. But my son just said something to me a week ago I thought was fascinating. Now, we didn't say it in front of him. He walked out. My wife and I had a discussion about it. But he said, one of his friends came up, because I have a son that's a senior right now, and then the twins are sophomores, and all three play varsity football. And one of the kids on the team, so it's kind of a special thing, right? You have these three boys that are playing football. And one of the boys on the team came up to him and said, hey, and I don't know how the conversation started, but the question was, what's it like to be a Wilson? I thought about that. I was like, what is he really asking? And so I asked my son a little bit about that, and he started talking about it. He said, well, all four of my boys are big. They're strong. They're obedient young men. They follow rules. They're just awesome. I mean, people come up all the time and tell us how they're doing good things, and hey, they stayed after the football game and cleaned up the stands, and they're doing all this stuff. And again, my wife will have to take the majority of that credit. But I think when you magnify those things, guess who's watching? Your kids, your partners, friends. And so people forget how much others are watching us. And it's not just what you post when the phone's up and you're talking to it. It's more about when that's not happening, people see it. When I've gone and spoken at events and hosted events for years, we'll bring the staff of the hotel in and say, hey, thanks for serving us for the last 2 days. Tell us where you're from. I'm from Bolivia. I'm from Nicaragua. I'm from all this stuff. It's awesome. And tell me why you're here. And then they think they're in trouble when they first walk in the room. They're like, no event has ever asked us to come into the room. I've got the back kitchen in here. I've got the support staff. I've got the hotel manager. And they're like, I've had people come up and go, 25 years of hotel management, I've never had a group do that. I'm like, that's how you make an impact. That's how you point out people's gifts. You point out the things they're amazing at. And that's how you make an impact in the world.
Incredible. And I do love that very poignant question of what is it like to be a Wilson? Right? What is it like? So when you look from that lens of, I felt very called to go and impact the world in this very specific way, which was through business and very much so through building a family as well. Have you ever experienced the paralyzing fear of just not being able to measure up to the calling? And what's the reframe for that?
All the time. I mean, some people call it imposter syndrome or call it, they call it different things, right?
Right.
And I always said the only person who doesn't have imposter syndrome is the imposter, because they're faking it anyway. So they don't, they don't have it. I think we all have it. I've been in some amazing rooms and masterminds of people who, do millions and billions, and they at times have it. I think we all have it. I think for me, the question when I start feeling that, I think I have to do two things for me. This is for me.
Please.
Two things I have to sort of step back and have that self-talk. By the way, self-talk is the only topic that's in all three of my books. Self-talk. So
fascinating.
I know. I didn't realize that till I edited this last book.
Okay.
So
let's talk about self-talk.
The self-talk that I have, because words matter, is I have to start having more a conversation of gratitude versus gap in my life. Usually when that is coming in. And the second thing is, this is key, is who can I go serve now? Like, I got to have more gratitude, and who can I go serve now? Because if I start feeling like I am not measuring up, it's because I'm totally looking at myself. I'm totally looking at myself. And it's a small nuance, but the moment that I've started, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a gentleman reach out to me recently and said, and he's doing, and in fact, most of the people I mentor do far more revenue business than I do. Fine, I don't care. But that's not why they hire me, by the way.
Yeah.
The people I'm personally mentoring, one of them called me up and he said, hey, I've been watching you for a long time. We spoke at events together. This is what I'm doing in life, but here's what's missing. I don't feel fulfilled. I keep chasing it. I'm not achieving it. And I need a better relationship with my spouse, children, my fitness, all that stuff. And I just see that you seem to have something figured out, something. Let's talk through it. And I just dove in and I dove in and I dove in and I said, how can I serve you? How can I do this? And I helped him align with some people and some things that won't serve me, but will serve him dramatically, and sent him on his way. And he called me back and he said, it was so funny. Literally, I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, you're hired. He said, you're hired. I said, I don't even know what I'm applying for. And he said, I really like who you sent me to has been life-changing. And so I just feel like the moment I feel like I'm in that gap, I just got to start serving people, because it takes me into my calling to make an impact, is to help people.
Incredible. And again, this theme of what is the self-talk that I'm choosing to have, because it's going to happen regardless, right? The talk is happening every single day. I want to just ask you a personal question about that.
Yeah.
How have you tried to raise kids to understand that concept of self-awareness, self-talk? What does that look like in a parenting strategy?
One thing my wife and I did is we invested in and built out our backyard, pool, deck, fire pit and stuff, because that's our sacred space with our kids. And the number of hours that we have sat back there and had conversations with our kids. And my wife is way better at this than I am, because I want to actually do the opposite of what Dave does. Sometimes I'm like, I want to fix it. I want to, hey, did you think about this? And did you think about that? And all this stuff. And I think the question my wife asks a lot, she's a really good listener. And then she'll say, what do you want? What do you want? Because it requires them to sit back and go, okay, maybe I just complained about this thing or this person or this thing. And I have to look at myself. I have to understand what's going on around me and just ask what I want. And so we have some rules in our house, some agreements in our house that when we talk about things and how we handle things, but I'll just simply say we're tough with our especially our boys. And I have a philosophy, and I don't know if it's right. We'll see. Time will tell. Time will reveal if I'm right. It doesn't even matter if I'm right, except that it's impactful to them. I think the world's incredibly hard, and I have a daughter, but I also have 4 boys. And I think the world is really hard on young men. And not that it's not on young women too. This is not a comparison thing, but I just specifically when I look through the lens of my boys. And so I have told them that this is the safest place you can be right now. So if you have something you want to talk about, something that's hard, let's talk about it. But I'm also here to be like Dave and be like, listen, let me tell you the truth, because the world's lying to you about this. And I think those conversations have just helped our boys be really, really self-aware. But they have the imposter syndrome themselves, and they work through it.
Yeah. And can I push even further to say, what are some things in the world right now that are lies specifically for young men? What do we need to be aware of?
Oh man, we're gonna open up
Chad, you knew what you were walking into. We're going there.
Yes. I think, well, let me tell you some truths too, because I think there's multiple ways the world lies about different things. And we see this, and we have people in our peripheral, and I don't want to say, because, that's not for this is their stories and their things, but we have people who I think are not fulfilling their role as a husband and father in our peripheral that we see. And so and the reason why they're not is I think the world has told them it's okay not to. It's okay to find your truth and in the vein of your own happiness, not fulfill your obligations to your spouse or your children. And I think there's two things. I think Ed Milet said something one time. He said, and I might have it wrong, but he says the most insidious form of child neglect is to a child to watch their parents give up on their dreams. And so I think we both tell our kids and our boys, like, you need to live your dreams just like we are. We're modeling that. I also tell my boys that my wife is the most important. And so you will never be able to come between us. That doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean those are separate. And I think that's some of the best things I can do for not only my boys, but also my daughter to see that. Some of the other truths I tell my boys is that you might have to have 3 jobs to support your family, but that's life, and hard work is hard work, and you need to be not shying away from hard work. You may not feel like it some days, but you got to do it. They do hard things. And yeah, there's a lot we talk about. We talk about faith, faithful men who, my son right now, he takes scriptures in at lunchtime. He's a senior in high school, has 3 football college offers, and he sits at the lunch table and reads scripture. I don't ask him to do that. He does that. And again, I never did that in high school. He's doing that because he believes in God and he wants to know his Savior better. And he's an example to those around him. And I said, you don't need to shy away from that, even though the world would tell you can't do that at school and you can't talk about God. I talk about God on stages all the time. And I tell event hosts, if you don't want me to do that, I'm not the guy for you. And so you can stand for that. And that's what I'm trying to teach my boys.
So good. So good. We're going to keep going down this rabbit hole for a minute.
Okay.
I've recently been studying actually about temple symbolism, right? That's my current vein of study. So, and one of the things that it talks about is, progression in ancient temples was first centered around just obedience, right? Very law of Moses, and when you're a child, you are in a world of, you just need to be obedient, right? And yes, we can say why, but here are the rules and here's why you're obedient. And then you start to move into a world of sacrifice, which is where you have some sort of core belief that by being obedient, it benefits my life, it benefits the lives of those I love. And so now I'm in a position where I'm willing to sacrifice things monetarily or with my time or with my talents for the whole, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of progress through these ideas and, it eventually ends with consecration and, that kind of full-blown mythology. Like, you guys, we're going deep today. This is so good. So glad you're here, Chaz. And so what I witness is through your parenting that they have gone through stages of, you just need to be obedient and you follow the agreements that we have. And like, this is how Wilsons behave and act and who they are. But your senior is now in a space of sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. He is now going into adulthood of sacrifice. How do you feel like you and your wife, clearly a team effort, have helped your kids bridge the gap between these are the commandments, these are the laws, these are the practices, this is who we are as Wilson, versus them actually internally wanting that in their life, right? There is a major exodus of faith for many people as they turn into adults and as freedom comes and they can now run wild or whatever it may be. I'm not witnessing that in your senior. I'm witnessing conversion and conviction. What have been some of the things that you have done as a couple to help instill that in your kids?
I appreciate the question. And I just want to say before I answer this, I don't know that we figured it out. I think we're figuring it out. I think we're working on it all the time. So I don't want to sit here and be like, we've got it all figured out. But I have 5 amazing children. My oldest is married. My daughter's at school in Idaho. My third son is getting ready to leave for church mission. And then the twins are in high school. I think it's actually pretty simple. And this is the only thing I can say. This is the only thing I can say for us. Don't be a hypocrite. Live what you teach. Live what you teach. And your children watch. They have watched me serve. I just had an assignment in our church for 5 straight years, and it required a lot of time. It required a lot of effort. It required a lot of serving. And I could look at that as a burden or a blessing. And I chose to look at it like a blessing. And I think that came through in every conversation, that came through in everything. And my kids see that. They're so observant. Children are so observant. And so if you say, don't hang out with bad people, but then you go out to the bars on the weekends and hang out with these types of people, like whatever, people see that your kids see that. They see you make this decisions. They see you make things. And then when you mess up, you fess up. I mean, there's been certainly times I've lost my temper or made a bad decision or whatever with my children. I've said, hey, I'm sorry. That was not the way I should have handled that. That's it. Like, you just have to be the example of that. And they see that. They see the things. Like, again, I'll give you an example. Like, my son, the reason why he does it is because he watches us study scripture and he watches us have conversations in our home around the dinner table about these things. And I ask them, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And I'll try to point out, look, you have a fork in the road. You could go left, you could go right. Here's somebody who went left and here's somebody who went right. What do you think the difference was potentially? And just try to help them see and navigate those things. And it's just the coolest thing. I know I'm bragging on my kids a lot here, but you asked the question. So, but my son, one of his jobs is he cleans our office. Okay. So he's trying to save some money for this church mission. So he cleans our office. For a year, he's done that. Every Saturday he comes in and he cleans that office, this office. I could show you pictures of this because I have cameras in my office. Every time he comes in, on my whiteboard in the left-hand corner, he writes a verse to me. And it sits up in that left-hand corner for the week. And that's his message to me as his dad. Dad, this is what I want you to think about this week. How cool is that?
Incredible.
Okay.
Incredible.
That's impact, but that's cyclical. That's impact. I can impact him and have over the years, and now he's impacting me, right? And that's the benefit of what we're trying to do as entrepreneurs. We have this platform, we have this stage, we have this thing that we're trying to make an impact. And we have people that are put in our lives that we can choose to do it. We can step into that calling or we can retreat. And I have certainly felt times where I felt a feeling inside to say something to somebody and retreated. And then there's been times I'm like, hey, can I have permission to be bold with you about something? Yeah, sure. What is it? Boom, dive in. They're like, oh my gosh, how did you know? I don't know, but I just felt I needed to share that with you today. And they're like, and then I'll text people, hey, I believe in you today. Stuff like that. It's so easy that we just disregard it. Because it's so easy.
Right.
And that's what Dave was for me. He was easy. He made it easy for me to believe in myself. And if I can share this, Sarah, a couple of years ago, Dave got COVID and he was in the hospital. And so think about this little message, right? So I had this feeling. I got off a webinar, closed the laptop, and I thought of Dave. He'd been in the hospital for 2 weeks fighting COVID. And so I just pulled out my phone. I texted him. I said, hey, thinking about you right now. Keep fighting. I love you. He replied, man, have I got a story to tell you when I get out? That was it. That afternoon, I went to my boys' football practice. I coached their team. I coached for 12 years. Came home. I walked in the doors like 8:00 at night, and I got a text from a friend that said, did you see Dave's post? It's like, no. It's like, you need to read it now. So I went on Facebook. I pulled up Dave's profile, and it said Dave's final post. And he basically wrote one last post to the world and said, doctors had come in and said, we cannot save you. And I didn't realize how bad he was. And he chose, palliative care, and he passed away that night. And, he was super impactful for me. And losing a person like that hurts, and it was hard. And I'm so grateful I shared one last message with him. I felt inspired to do that. And I'm glad I texted him. I told him I loved him. But this book, we had not finished.
Yeah.
We had started the preliminary conversations of the book. That's as far as it got. I had the recordings. And I remember sitting in a mastermind with Russell Brunson. He was sitting right across from me, and I was telling the story. And he had lost his friend, Dave, coincidentally, both our mentors, Dave's. And he said, Chaz, the best way you can honor his legacy and create the impact is finish the book. And so I left. Yeah, I left that event and I went and I finished the book. And so this has been a 7-year labor to finish what he and I started as that person of impact.
Incredible. And now that book just holds even that much more weight and, for lack of a better word, impact that the world just desperately needs right now.
Yeah.
Chaz, my mind is blown. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, right? But a conversation with you, I shouldn't have been surprised that this is what it would feel like. I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom, so many great stories, so much, realism. And I want to just grab our listeners' attention and point out one thing that Chaz said about his mentor, Dave. And that is that it felt easy with him, right? Something flowed and something felt easy. And I hope our listeners recognize that that is not a marketing gimmicky word. Now that you have the context of who Chaz is, and now listeners, as you have the context of who Dave is, I hope you recognize the absolute power of that compliment that Chaz has given about his mentor, Dave, and about it feeling easy, and that there really is easy ways to start building a life of impact. And I think we have been so richly fed today. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. It's just, first off, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, but look at what you're doing. This is a platform. This is a way for you to let other people tell their stories and create impact in the lives of your listeners, but also to the people who get to be on this podcast. And so this is a great platform that is now helping people create businesses worth owning, that funds lives worth living, and all of those things that you're able to do. So I just kudos to you, because most people don't take the step forward and then commit to it and do it. And so just kudos to you.
Thank you so much. And the image I can't get out of my head is when you talk about this story of you and your son that writes the message for you on the corner of the board every week. And I imagine, when you skip rocks, a rock goes in and it ripples out, and then it jumps, 3 feet out, and there's another ripple. And I think sometimes that's the hard way to view impact, where I make this effort and it ripples, and then I jump and make that effort and it ripples. But instead, what I see is just a shower of rocks. That when we learn how to impact, yes, you make that effort and it ripples, but someone else has been impacted by your ripple and therefore is energized and aligned to throw their rock in, and it impacts you in a positive way. And I'm just seeing all of these ripples and the necessity for the time that we live in right now for all of us to be able to make our mark and receive the impact from other people as well. That image is going to be going with me this week. Shameless plug. In the book, one of the chapters is called The Point of Impact. And so I talk about the point. There's the path, but also the point of impact, and very much what you're talking about. Well, I am looking forward to grabbing my own copy and diving in and just seeing it all come together. Thank you to the amazing Chaz Wilson. In typical Unreasonable Autonomy fashion, I have just a couple of rapid fire questions that we like to ask our guests. It should be fairly easy to answer, but just grateful again for your time today. So our very first question is going to be, besides your book, right, The Amazing Impact Effect, what is one book that you believe absolutely every single entrepreneur must read?
One of my favorites, and I think is important, and it really deals with what we're talking about today, is called The Gap and the Gain by Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Love.
And Dan Sullivan. What a great book. I mean, I consider him a friend. He's phenomenal and amazing. And he just endorsed my book, but that has nothing to do with me choosing his book. I love his book. I love all his stuff, but that's probably one of my favorites.
And what an incredible combo, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, just like you and Dave, right? Let's talk about power partnership there. Some parallel stories there. All right. Second and final question here at the end of this conversation is, when you look as if you are at the end of your life, what do you hope your kids say about you?
Oh, wow. You're going to hit me with that question. One of my other mentors I didn't talk about hit me with a phrase in my life early on. You'll see why this is important. He hit me with a phrase early on in my life. I was also, like my son is getting ready to, I was serving a church mission, and pretty quickly I realized, I don't know if this is for me, and I wanted to go home. And he said, well, you hired out for a tough guy, now make good. He said, you signed up to do this, now make good. And
wow.
Actually, early on when I was building my company and I had a really hard day, I went home to my wife and she gave me a hug and she whispered into my ear, you hired out for a tough guy, now make good.
Very good.
And so I think at the end of my life, I think my children would say, Dad made good.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Someday I'm going to go interview those kids. I'm going to fly them out here to the podcast studio, and we're going to have some chats on what it's like to be a Wilson.
There you go.
It's like a conversation worth having. Well, thank you again so much for who you are, what you do, and the impact you're having on the world. All of our listeners below, you can go ahead and grab the Impact Effect. We'll also be, sending some things out to our email list about how they can get a hold of that, how they can work with you, Chaz, and all of those things. So those will be up and coming. Again, thank you to the amazing Chaz Wilson. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Honored.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.